What if the biggest Dinar story of the year isn't a new rate? What if it isn't a secret bank screen? What if it isn't even happening inside the Central Bank of Iraq? What if the real story is happening behind closed doors in Baghdad, where economic deals worth billions of dollars are being negotiated right now? And what if those negotiations could tell us more about Iraq's future than any rumor ever could? Welcome back to Global Currency Watch. Today we're diving into a headline that has generated enormous attention across the Dinar community. Trump sends his top dealmaker to Baghdad. Here's what it actually means for your dinar. Now, before we begin, let's make something very clear. There is no confirmed public evidence that President Trump personally sent a specific top dealmaker to Baghdad for dinar-related negotiations, but there have been ongoing discussions between US officials, business leaders, energy companies, and Iraqi leadership regarding investment, security, energy cooperation, and economic development. And that's where today's story becomes interesting, because when Washington increases its focus on Iraq, smart investors pay attention, not because it guarantees a revaluation, but because it reveals where the future may be heading. Let's break it all down. Why Baghdad matters more than ever. For years, many investors viewed Iraq through a very narrow lens. They looked only at the exchange rate, only at the dinar, only at the next potential announcement. But major governments don't look at Iraq that way. They look at Iraq as one of the most strategically important countries in the Middle East. Think about it. Iraq sits at the crossroads of the region. It possesses some of the largest oil reserves in the world. It connects major trade routes, and it plays a crucial role in regional stability. From Washington's perspective, Iraq isn't simply a country. It's a strategic partner. And whenever major US political figures, diplomats, or business representatives increase engagement with Iraq, it usually means one thing: important economic discussions are taking place. Those discussions often involve energy, infrastructure, banking, technology, investment, and long-term economic cooperation. These are the exact areas that influence the strength of a country's economy, and stronger economies generally support stronger currencies over time. That's why investors should watch these developments carefully, not because they signal an overnight event, but because they reveal long-term direction. The real negotiations happening behind the scenes. Here's something many investors overlook. Major currency changes rarely happen in isolation. Before significant monetary reforms occur, governments typically spend years building relationships, negotiating agreements, modernizing infrastructure, and creating confidence among international investors. Confidence is everything. If foreign companies are willing to invest billions into Iraq, that's a sign they believe the country is becoming more stable, more predictable, and more business-friendly. Today, Iraq is attracting increasing attention from international energy companies, technology firms, construction companies, and financial institutions. Why? Because Iraq's potential remains enormous. The country possesses vast natural resources, a growing population, and significant reconstruction opportunities. International investors see potential, and when international investors see potential, capital begins to move. Money follows opportunity, always. That's one reason discussions between Iraqi officials and international partners matter so much. They're not just talking about today. They're talking about the next decade. And that's the timeline serious investors should be considering. 3. What this could mean for the dinar. Now let's address the question everyone is asking. What does this mean for the Iraqi dinar? The honest answer is simple. No one knows exactly what future exchange rate decisions will look like. Anyone claiming certainty is guessing. But we can examine the fundamentals. A stronger economy generally creates pressure for a stronger currency. A growing private sector supports currency stability. Foreign investment improves confidence. Modern banking systems increase efficiency. Economic diversification reduces risk. These are all positive developments, and Iraq has been working on many of them simultaneously. The Central Bank of Iraq has invested heavily in banking modernization. Digital payment systems continue expanding. Electronic transactions are increasing. Financial reforms are ongoing. These developments don't create headlines like RV tomorrow, but they're far more important, because sustainable monetary reform requires infrastructure. Without infrastructure, any currency change becomes difficult to maintain. That's why professional economists focus on reforms, not rumors. The reforms are what matter. The reforms are what last. And right now Iraq continues moving in that direction. What most investors are missing. Here's what I believe many investors miss. They focus entirely on the destination, but ignore the journey. Imagine you're building a skyscraper. Would you measure success by looking at the roof every day? Of course not. You would evaluate the foundation, the steel framework, the electrical systems, the support structure, because those components determine whether the building succeeds. The same principle applies to Iraq, the banking reforms, the anti-corruption efforts, the foreign investment agreements, the infrastructure projects, the energy partnerships. These are the structural components. These are the foundation. And when you step back and look at the bigger picture, Iraq is very different from where it was 10 years ago. The country still faces challenges, political challenges, economic challenges, regional challenges, but progress is visible. The trend matters, and long-term investors understand that trends often matter more than daily headlines. The people who succeed are usually the ones who recognize structural change before everyone else does. The big lesson for Dinar holders: let's bring everything together. If Washington increases economic engagement with Baghdad, that's important. If major business leaders increase their focus on Iraq, that's important. If foreign investment continues expanding, that's important. If banking reforms continue progressing, that's important. None of these developments guarantee a specific exchange rate. None of them provide a date. And none of them eliminate risk. But together they tell a story. A story about a country attempting to modernize. A story about economic transformation. A story about increasing international integration. And that's the story investors should be paying attention to. Not the daily rumors. Not the secret sources. Not the sensational headlines. The real story is the foundation being built underneath the headlines. Because at the end of the day, currencies derive value from economic strength. And economic strength comes from investment, productivity, confidence, and stability. That's what matters. That's what lasts. And that's why smart investors focus on preparation instead of speculation. So what does Trump's top dealmaker in Baghdad actually mean for your dinar? The answer isn't a magical rate. The answer isn't a secret date. The answer is that growing international engagement with Iraq may be another sign that the country's economic future continues moving forward. And if Iraq succeeds in building a stronger economy, the dinar's long-term outlook becomes much more interesting. That's the real takeaway. If you enjoyed today's analysis, make sure to subscribe to Global Currency Watch. We're here to cut through the noise, focus on facts, and help you stay informed about the developments that truly matter. Until next time, stay informed, stay patient, stay prepared, and remember, preparation beats speculation every single time.